I guarantee that this will leave you in astonishment. I had never anticipated that I would find myself in this predicament, greeting a much younger man than myself and yearning for his companionship as if I were a woman bound by love, after years of being liberated from that intimidation. Nevertheless, I began to drift off after a decade of silent nights, during which I spent countless hours solely concentrated on my own hands and unfulfilled ambitions. Afterward, he entered my universe. Aiden, my son's most cherished companion. The women were left in awe as a young man who was tall, robust, and attracted attention passed by. His hunched shoulders, slender limbs, and cinched abdomen were reminiscent of a marble masterpiece, and they captivated my attention every time he lifted his shirt to wipe his forehead. Initially, it was solely a harmless form of admiration. Nevertheless, an attachment began to develop within me as the weeks progressed. A presence that invites. The initial appeal. It occurred on a summer afternoon that was characterized by an abundance of sunlight. My son was on a weekend excursion, leaving Aiden alone in our residence. An abrupt jolt woke me at the door of my bedroom. I was still wearing a soft robe that I had just removed from the dryer. "Madam Carter, what is your name? It seems that the air conditioning system is not functioning adequately. Would you be able to furnish me with a receipt?" A fleeting period of uncertainty occurred. My heart beat with fervor. When I addressed you as friend, my tone was considerably more compassionate than I had intended. Aidan entró, su tejido ajustado a su pecho rojo, y sus ojos profundos se encontraron con las manos con intensidad. I perceived it at that moment. Consistently increasing electricity emissions. Unspoken yearning. The gentle silence of my muslin was only partially concealed through the open aperture of my bat, where their eyes were riveted. She ought to have been more vigilant. He ought to have terminated his employment. Nevertheless, I refrained from doing so. Additionally, I will lean against the comfortable surface, allowing the blanket to descend slightly below my head. I trembled as the heat enveloped us, observing the manner in which her body moved when she drank. Aiden encountered difficulty in exhaling. In reality, it produces an excessive amount of heat. The atmosphere that enveloped us was perilous, electrifying, and dense. He extended his hands in front of him. She resisted and confronted me. I experienced feelings of exhaustion. The universe underwent an irrevocable transformation in that instant. A deliberate and circumspect approach was adopted by him. I was capable of identifying the fragrance of her colony, the odor, and the piss. As I gazed upward, my body experienced an urge for an illicit substance. Allowing my fingertips to delicately trace his arm and bask in the warmth of his skin, gently murmur at Aiden. "You are not required to depart at this time." During exhalation, their lungs contracted. His mandible was clenched with tension. He cried out, his voice brimming with optimism and effort, "Charlotte." It would be imprudent to persist. However, his physical appearance was entirely different. As I approached, my lips were no more than an inch from theirs. I came to the realization that that moment had been frozen in time for eternity. It is expected that the temperature will continue to increase, surpassing the threshold for non-return. Aiden's chest rose as if he were engaged in an intense internal struggle, and his breathing was labored. Charlotte's voice was hushed, and the tips of her fingers trembled, as if she were attempting to communicate with me. Nevertheless, the circumstance persisted. My excitement was stimulated by that pause. As I approached, the delicate fabric of my sari fell, revealing the gentle silence of my heart that I had previously discovered. He had a mandible and his eyes were burning with a deep intensity, humming with an insatiable desire. I attempt to maintain a close proximity between my lips and yours as I whisper, "Please provide me with your name." In the end, Claire exhaled. That was the critical moment. I extended my hand, allowing my fingers to glide over the firm contours of his abdomen, observing the tension that lingered beneath my fingertips. An intense conflation engulfed his body. His muscles resisted my touch as he inhaled rapidly. While walking with a deliberate and uncertain stride, he experienced a sensation of having his words pulled from his ear. Aiden's head will be slightly inclined as I gingerly lift him. Is this of interest to you? His body was unyielding, and his hands were forced into firm fists at the sides, resembling those of a contortionist. Their determination was abruptly terminated, however. I was drawn to his strong and capable frame as his hands gently wrapped around my neck in a gentle embrace. The heat of her presence overwhelmed me, eroding my fortifications. His body was tense from an inflexible control, and his face was cold. His hands were only a few centimeters away, causing my pulse to beat with force against my chest. He confessed, "I've been yearning for you for an eternity," his voice resonating with desire. He finally touched my epidermis with his hands, and I exhaled rapidly. His hand remained in my hair with a tense intention, his grasp firm and dominant, as he rubbed the edge of my bat. "Aiden." My voice emanated a desperation murmur as I spoke. In the end, his lips embraced the hands in a tender embrace. The kiss was life-saving, urgent, and passionate. I intensify my proximity to him by encircling his thick, dark hair with my fingertips, thereby uniting my body with his. His hug was intense, as if he had been anticipating this moment, as if he was anxious about not losing what he had just discovered, hugging every centimeter. I supported him, yearning for more, as his anger enveloped his chest, and I delicately shivered against his lips. This is not an activity in which we should be involved. Nevertheless, his hands persisted in their unyielding movement, as if they were in a state of challenge. Not me. For the first time in a decade of solitude, I felt a genuine sensation of vitality within myself. The morning following, it implied at the very least. My skin was alive with the persistent sensation of his affection, which glistened in the air, upon my awakening. The essence of him remained in my lips, while my body ached more. Nevertheless, I came to the realization that the bed was empty after squeezing my extremities and embracing the man who had enlightened my consciousness. Aiden had disappeared. I am discovered there, performing an acrobatic maneuver with my foot on the accelerator, briefly reliving each second of the previous night's attempt. His hands traversed my body with a fervor that spoke of pleasure, and his lips rubbed my hands with an intensity that was almost sacred. It was as if he had anticipated this moment for eternal. Nevertheless, the weight of reality descended upon me as the morning light illuminated the world. What had been accomplished? Once more, the illicit allure beckons. Suddenly, a sound broke through the silence, just as I was about to leave the comfort of my bed. Suddenly, my respiration became more challenging. Reverberations of footfall. The bedroom door abruptly opened, emitting a gentle creak. Aiden was standing in front of me, his eyes fixed on my hands. His body was shrouded in darkness and adorned with brilliant pearls. She was not donning a shirt. "I fled," he declared, his voice a low and resonant murmur. I was compelled to clear my consciousness. I was enveloped by a sensation of heat, and saliva poured from my mouth as I observed his formidable physical attributes. Was it effective? I queried, but my tone was more gentle than I had intended. He entered and firmly closed the door behind him, exhaling a murmur of relief. It is disheartening. Before I could even comprehend the situation, I was once again on my back, with his hands securely grasping my neck and his lips colliding with my hands in a fierce embrace. JD's body fused with my hand as she supported me against the wall, and the fervor between us once again erupted, enveloping me in a state of pandemonium. "Please confirm that you have no remorse," as he confessed. "I cannot stop thinking about you." He was cold toward my epidermis. Regret? I came to the realization that I had aspired to begin this journey at a much earlier date. My fingers slid along the firm contours of his neck, and I vehemently shook my head. I do not harbor any remorse, not even for a millisecond. His agility began to deteriorate, while his grasp became more firm. "I have yet to conclude my correspondence with you, which is commendable. As a result, we will be delivering it once more, this time without vacuuming." His kiss sparked a conflagration. Their hands, eager yet gentle, held my palms as I pressed against the wall. My hand was used to establish his body with a fervor that was reflective of my own aspirations. He could sense the rhythm of his heartbeat, and his tension was palpable. The air around us was electrified with an unspoken desire. Smiling, he clasped my hand and murmured, "Say yes." Regrettably, it did not. Additionally, I approached him, burying my hands in his hair and allowing my tongue to sway against his in a slow and tentative cadence. The vibration of his voice resonated within me, inducing a tremor that extended down my spinal column. "Claire," the sound of my name in his ears was a shriek and a curse. I guided him to my bedroom, my heart pounding in my ears. When the door closed, his hands were free to move, enabling him to investigate the corridors that had been concealed from the public eye for an extended period and remove his clothes. Nevertheless, Aiden exhibited reverence toward me. You are incredibly attractive. He inhaled deeply, his lips gliding over my head, grabbing my clavicle, and descending further. Jade abruptly emerged from the bed as my column slid out of its position while he was preoccupied with me. His interaction rekindled an emotion that had been dormant for years. The screen of the saber is being held by Aiden, Jade, and my palms. She refused to relinquish control until my muscles vibrated around her neck, and it trembled and shuddered. His name echoed in the shadows as he finally fulfilled my wish with an elated smile, involving me so completely and to the nth degree. The bed was encased in an urgent superstructure, sagging under the weight of our enthusiasm. Each alienation was fraught with peril, and each interaction between us was replete with unspoken truths. As he sat on me and followed me to the Abbey with a hefty foot, the comprehension overtook me. Retroceding was not feasible. Dialogue bubble. What do you expect to occur subsequent to this? Asterisko. Will their identify be disclosed? Asterisko. Is it possible for them to satisfy the yearning to communicate? Asterisko. Will the remorse inevitably cause them to be distraught? Asterisko. I would appreciate it if you could provide your predictions in the comments section below. Please ensure that you activate notifications, like, and subscribe to receive additional captivating stories. Asterisko. The intensity of forbidden love has never been so high. Asterisko. 1 year later. The letter arrived on Tuesday. Asterisko. Esteemed Charlotte, we are sorry to inform you that your son, Mason, has formally withdrawn his consent to any form of communication. The reader was not required to conclude their reading. The relieved mistress conveyed a substantial quantity of information. I placed the paper on the kitchen counter, the same counter where Aiden had kissed me for the first time, where we had crossed a line that could never be undone. My hands were trembling. My stomach was tenderly touched by a tender hand. Hello. Aiden's voice had developed a more profound and secure quality. The young man whom I had previously admired underwent a transformation into a man during these brief months. Are you in excellent health? Aiden was transferred to a different school on the other side of the country as a consequence of our actions. The comforting fragrance of wood smoke was intermingled with the cheap colony to which one was persistently attracted. The truth persisted in the air, despite the fact that the invitation was not desired by any of us. Aiden's embrace intensified, his arms encircled me in a firm embrace. I am cognizant. A memory that has been preserved in time. It has been 3 months since that initial evening. Your mere presence is entirely abhorrent to me. Asterisko. Mason's voice broke, eliciting memories of his youth at 15 years old, not 25. The leather bag that was resting on his shoulders was entirely loaded and prepared for departure. Is Asterisko my most trusted confidant? Mother, are you being sincere? Asterisko. I extended my hand toward him. It was an unanticipated development. Was there any significance to it? In her opinion, the bride's breasts were resplendent, evoking memories of my ex-husband. Was he an asterisk? Asterisko. The present period is represented by asterisks. As they approached, Aiden's forehead delicately rested against mine. We could consider the possibility of establishing communication. Please resubmit. I evaded the individual who had fractured and reconstructed my own essence. Their eyes were adorned with smudges of delight, a testament to our secret weekend getaways by the water. The brand's signature functions as a reminder of our impulsive culinary adventures. Her gaze was fixed on me as if she were the moon's own incarnation, despite my self-perception as the antagonist in this narrative. I will not, as my fingertips glide along the line of his hand. There are certain calls that are so intense that they are impossible to suppress. The door sounded as if it were reverberating throughout the area. Aiden's bed was fractured by his dissatisfaction. Are you anticipating the advent of a visitor? I do not. The phantasm of the past greeted me upon the door's initial opening. I would be in a soiled attire and would be holding a stack of margaritas, the same ones that I had been given on our first date 2 decades and 2 years ago. Claire, with warmest respects. Asterisko. My spouse's smile was tainted with uncertainty. A gentle background murmur was generated by the motor of a stationary shifter in the steel. A silent tempest, Aiden's presence drifted behind me. He was able to discern his tension without having to glance behind him, as his fingers were clenched in clenched fists. The existence that had been abandoned was embodied by a solitary male. The alternative, the existence she had adopted. I was reminded of this as the ominous shadow danced with the gentle wind along the placid suburban street. This was not the conclusion. It was a moment of contemplation. In accordance with the dialogue bubble, which individual should Claire choose? Aiden, an illicit love, an ardent desire, and an illicit love that is intense but threatens to consume it. Asterisko. The act of leaving, a sense of security, his erstwhile companion, and the opportunity to rebuild his family. A message to the editor. Distancing himself from both was his decision. The llamas ingested it entirely 6 months later. Asteroidal. The courtroom was permeated by the persistent odor of rancid coffee. I felt as though my attorney's oppression was a reflection of the burden of my recent circumstances as she pushed a document across the table and grabbed it from the collar of my blouse. Granting Mason's father full custody, he murmured in resignation. Asterisko's sole accomplishment was his supervised visit. Asterisko. My spouse, who was consciously avoiding my gaze, was seated on the opposite side of the door. Our beloved son, my beloved child, gazed at the wall beside him as if I had already been transformed into a phantom. What is the current status of Aiden? Aiden was absent. In an instant that was suspended in time, the night concluded, and everything was shattered into fragments. You recognized that this would transpire. Asterisko. Mason had screamed as a result of throwing the framed photo of his secondary school graduation through the bedroom window. Aiden's cranium was only severed when he collided with the wall. You demonstrate a dearth of thought and an abundance of egotism. I possess your essence. Asterisko. The windows echoed with its presence. Asterisko. Is it presumed that this information should be kept confidential? Asterisko. Era actual. Asterisko. Asterisko. The judge's mallet struck with the force of a bullet. The case has been dismissed. Asterisko. In the midst of a torrential downpour, I emerged from the courtroom, and the October wind tore at my tresses as a form of retribution. I observed him at that moment, peacefully leaning against his vehicle while wearing an irritating leather jacket. He appeared much more disheveled than his 80 years would indicate.
Claire.
Asterisko. He was carrying a water container in his mouth. I was overcome by an insatiable inclination to consume her. I was overcome by an insatiable compulsion to strike him. This location is not suitable for your needs. Asterisko. And disquieting serenity was imbued in my voice. As Aiden stepped away from the path, his boots spurted water when they collided with the pavement. Asterisko. I have been admitted to the firefighters training program in the state of Colorado. Asterisko. She installed a cart that was fragmented and salvaged. Asterisko. Is this genuinely the conclusion? Asterisko. Accompany me on this journey. His hands, which resembled asteroids, encircled my chest, their calloused digits tearing at my raincoat and apron. Asterisko. that this community is malevolent. Forget the past. We are the only ones who are embarking on a new beginning. Asterisco. I will shut my eyes. At the age of 8, Mason's cranium was adorned with the remains of a chocolate cake. Observe the moment when Aiden was ecstatic upon his initial arrival in my universe. I observed the empty wine bottles and the single bottles that await me on the weekends. I arrived at a conclusion after opening them. Rocky Mountain Sunrise was released 1 year later. Asterisco. Asterisco. The airport silence is interrupted by the piercing shriek of the bomb shelter alarm at 3 o'clock in the morning. I return to our furnished bed, where I observe Aiden's difficulty in dressing with a certain lack of sophistication. She maintains her position in the umbrel, as she has consistently done, and applies a delicate kiss to the delicate protuberance of my pregnant abdomen. Both hold a special place in my heart. Asterisco. I am extremely reserved, as I am apprehensive. The initial chilly snowflakes of the winter commence their delicate descent through the window. In a remote location, a progeny may be unable to forgive their mother. The phone may remain silent during its fleeting existence, never providing the apology it desires. Nevertheless, the elephants in this location sway and perform. Tranquility is the hallmark of this location.